Hi, it's Ty the Real Estate Guy here in the great state of Utah. And this video is for those of you looking to buy your first house. This video will simplify the home buying process for first-time home buyers. And by the way, if you'd like to stay up to date on the latest home building and real estate tips and trends, subscribe to my channel below and ring that little bell. In this video, I'm going to break down the house buying process and give you a better understanding of what to do when you're ready or think you're ready to buy a house. This video will teach you the correct order when buying a house. As a real estate professional with 15 years of experience, I've personally purchased multiple homes for myself, both to live in and as investment properties. I've also guided hundreds of people through the process of buying a home. The goal of this video is to help you avoid the common mistakes I see people make when buying a house. So, what's the first thing you should do? Number one, you need to get pre-approved for a loan. Technically, you could start with step number 2 by contacting a real estate agent first, but I usually recommend starting with a lender so you know if you can even buy a house. That being said, most realtors have a trusted loan officer, and most real estate agents I know would love to guide you through the entire process. So there's no reason not to start with contacting a realtor. Really, steps 1 and 2 are interchangeable, and you can start with either one. So going back to getting a loan approval, banks just don't give money to anyone. Well, at least not anymore. Not since the Great Recession, when banks were doing all sorts of things they shouldn't have done, which led to one of the worst times ever to own a house. This, in turn, led to one of the best times to buy a house ever. I'm going to start with a warning, or at least an expectation. The lender's going to want to see all of your recent financial information, and if you've had a financial issue in the past, they may want a letter of explanation. You'll have to provide things like your last few pay stubs, which proves your employment, bank statements, 2 years of tax returns, and more. Honestly, it can be a huge pain, and it often leads to a lot of frustration. So just be prepared to provide all that information. Once you've done all of this, the bank will tell you how much house you can afford and what your monthly payment will be. The other reason you'll want to get pre-qualified before looking at houses is because if you make an offer on a home, usually the sellers will want to see your loan approval. Most sellers will not want to take their home off the market while you see if you can qualify to buy a house. In some situations, it can take weeks for a lender to confirm you're good to go. So, like I said earlier, you'll want to be pre-qualified and ready to go before you start looking at houses. Here's what you'll need to be prepared when speaking with a bank or a loan officer. You'll need to have a decent credit score. This number changes, but usually you want to have a credit score of 640 or higher. The higher your credit score, the better interest rate you'll get on your loan. You'll also need some money for a down payment. The minimum would be 3.5% for an FHA loan. If you're in the military, you can get a 0% down VA loan, or if you live in a rural area, you could get a 0% down USDA loan. But if you make too much money, you will not qualify for that loan. If you can come up with 5% down, you can go with a conventional loan, which will give you the ability to remove mortgage insurance really easily in the future. There are also down payment assistance programs like government grants, so make sure you're checking to see if you qualify for one of those. You'll also want to be prepared to pay closing costs. These are fees the bank will charge you to do the loan. You'll also get to pay title insurance. They do this to confirm that the people you're buying the house from have the legal right to sell the home to you. This also protects you if someone comes back later claiming it's their house. The title company or attorney will also charge you for handling the transaction as a neutral third party. All these closing costs typically add up to about 3% of the sales price of the house. So, on a $300,000 house, you need approximately $10,500 for your down payment and another $7,500 for closing costs. This means you need about $18,000. That being said, it's common and almost expected that buyers are going to ask the seller for help paying closing costs. So when you submit your offer, you want to ask the seller to pay your closing costs, or at least a portion of them. Just so you know, in a hot market, the seller will be far less likely to pay any closing costs, and they'll be less willing to discount the price of the home as well. But in a stale or declining market, there's a really good chance the seller will accept a lower offer or pay some closing costs, and sometimes they'll do both. You'll also need to prove to the lender that you have a good job and that you've been with the same company or at least in the same industry for at least 2 years. They'll want to see proof or documentation of your income so the bank can confirm what type of home you can afford. This doesn't have to be just the money you receive from a job. It can also include things like disabilities, child support, and etc. Buying a house is a huge financial obligation. The last thing I want is for you to buy a home and then end up losing it and all the money you've put into it. So I'm going to give you 2 scenarios where you may want to hold off even if you qualify to buy a house. Here we go. Number 1, if you have a lot of debt, in most situations, I would tell you not to buy a house yet. Always get rid of your debt before buying a home. Number 2, don't buy a house if you don't have money in the bank. I'd recommend a minimum of 3 months of living expenses, but 6 months would be ideal. Life sometimes has a way of surprising us. Often, people lose their job after closing on their home. You'll want to be able to make that monthly mortgage payment and buy food and etc. while you search for other employment. More often, you'll have unexpected home repairs. Unless you're buying a new construction home, I'd almost expect the unexpected to happen. This could be things like the water heater or furnace going out, maybe a leak in the roof. Really, a million things could go wrong. And I'm not trying to scare you, I just want to make sure you're prepared. This is why I chose to really focus on the new home construction industry and why I often recommend building a home instead of buying existing. If you're not sure if you want to buy a new home or go existing, check out my video, Building a House versus Buying an Existing House. I'll put a link to this video below. How do you find a good lender? Well, you could ask friends and family if they had a good experience using someone, or you could ask a real estate professional. Realtors prefer to use lenders they can count on, and we've all worked with lenders who have dropped the ball. So when you ask an experienced real estate agent who they'd recommend, they should be able to give you 2, maybe 3 solid options. Number 2, you'll want to find an experienced realtor. Most buyers don't understand that when you're buying a house, a realtor doesn't cost you anything. When someone lists their home with an agent, they agree to pay that brokerage a specific percentage or price ahead of time. They'll pay that fee whether you have representation or not. So you might as well save yourself a lot of time and money by hiring a professional. But remember, just because someone has a real estate license, it doesn't mean that they're a professional. You want to hire someone that can guide you through the whole process from finding the right house to negotiating the best price, and then of course, through the process until you close on the home. Buying a house is probably the largest financial decision you'll ever make. So you want to make sure you hire a true professional, someone with experience. Now, before I continue, can I ask a quick favor? Will you please give this video a thumbs up? I would appreciate that more than you know, and that thumbs up will help others see that this video is helpful. Thank you. Okay, continuing with number 3. Start your home search. If you're looking for the quickest and easiest route to finding the perfect home, contact your realtor and tell them exactly what you're looking for. Let them do the research and then send you the list of homes that fit your criteria. Before you contact your realtor or start looking for a house online, carefully decide what features are most important to you. This will be things like location, size of the house and the home site, bedrooms, bathroom, the garage, and etc. Write down your wants and needs and send that list to your real estate agent. Your realtor will send you a list of houses that are currently available for sale. One of the biggest frustrations for buyers is finding homes online that say they're for sale when they're actually already sold. Unfortunately, a lot of big real estate search engines out there, like Zillow, are not very accurate. Also, just as a side note, it's important to understand your local market. Are you in a buyer's market or a seller's market? If you're in a buyer's market, you can take your time and submit offers below the asking price. In other words, there's a better chance you'll get a deal, and you can patiently wait for the right house to come along. If you're in a seller's market, you need to be aggressive in your search, and if you find a house that you like, you'll want to put in an offer as soon as possible. Often, in a seller's market, when a home is listed, you'll get multiple offers in the first day or two, so just be prepared for that. That means there's a high probability that you'll miss out on the first house you submit an offer on. It's just part of the normal real estate buying process. You may end up putting in 3 or even 4 offers before finally putting a house under contract. Understanding the market will protect you from disappointment. To improve your chances of getting the house you want, whether you're in a buyer's market or a seller's market, you'll want to be aggressive. When you find a house or houses that you'd like to see, contact your real estate agent and set an appointment. I recommend getting out to see the house as soon as possible, but remember that a lot of sellers will want a 24 hours heads up. Why? Because it's really hard to keep your home in showing condition, especially if you have kids and pets. It's kind of like asking a girl on a date. You've got to give her a heads up so she has time to get ready. She'll want to put her best foot forward, and when people sell their homes, they feel the same way. Long story short, for the most part, you want to be prepared to see the home the following day. But you can always ask to see the house sooner if there's a home or two you're really desperate to see. No matter how bad you want the house, you cannot appear to be eager or desperate. If the seller notices, you'll lose all negotiating power. There's a certain protocol you'll want to follow when you tour homes. When you're done with this video, you may want to watch my video, 10 Things You Never Say When Buying a House. I'll put a link to this video below. Once you found the house that you love, it's time to write up an offer. Your agent will guide you through this part of the process. My one piece of advice is if you really love the home and you feel the price is fair, do not submit a lowball offer. My brother and I received some horrible advice from an inexperienced realtor, and we submitted a lowball offer on his recommendation for an investment property that would have made us a crap load of money. When the seller saw our offer, he refused to sell the home to us. It's really hard to look back at that missed opportunity and all the money that we lost out on. It's okay to ask for some closing costs or a small discount, but keep in mind, the more you ask for, the lower your chances are of getting that house. Also, when you submit an offer, be prepared to leave an earnest money deposit. Usually, this is between $1,000 and $5,000. The dollar amount usually depends on the price of the home you're buying and market conditions. The earnest money shows the seller that you're serious, and it's important to know that if you cancel, you could lose that money. I'll talk more about this later and teach you how to protect that deposit. Number 4, under contract. It's super exciting when you hear the words, your offer has been accepted, but don't celebrate yet. And this is why it typically takes 30 to 45 days for a house to close from the day the offer is accepted. You'll have a due diligence time period to make sure the house is worth what you're paying. The lender will have the home appraised to make sure it's valued at what you're paying. You'll also want to do a home inspection. The home inspection is a must on any existing home, particularly if the home is older. The inspector will give you a detailed report on the property. As you look the list over, you may find something that's unacceptable. It might make you sad or maybe even angry. But before you decide to cancel, you can actually submit an addendum to the seller asking them to repair or replace the item or items that you have an issue with. Even if there are some minor things, you can ask the seller to fix them, or instead ask for a small price reduction and fix the items yourself. Usually, if you're fair in what you're asking the seller to do, they'll do what it takes to keep things moving forward on the sale of their home. If you can't come to an agreement, you can cancel and get your earnest money back so long as you're still within your due diligence time period. I also feel like I should remind you not to buy anything major at this time, especially something like a car. Yes, I had a client do this, and without the help of her parents, she would have lost that house. The bigger mistake I often see is people get excited for their new home and go out and buy a bunch of furniture, usually on credit, to be delivered after the home closes. This could also put you at risk of losing the home. Just wait to buy anything you don't need until after the house closes, and do not open a new credit card. This all leads me to number 5, closing on the home. Step number 5 actually takes us all the way back to step number 1. Before you can close, the lender will confirm you're still good to go. Since the process of getting your loan approval to closing on a home usually takes 2 to 4 months, or up to 9 months if you build a house, the lender will want to confirm you're still employed by the same company. They'll want to see how much money you have in your bank and your investments. They could even ask for things that don't really make sense, but once again, it's all part of the process and it will all be worth it in the end. Just remember to get the information they require back to them as quickly as possible to keep the process moving forward. This is called the final loan approval. If for some reason the lender is struggling to get you the final loan approval and you need more time, you can ask the seller to extend the closing date and the due diligence timeline. Usually, the seller will extend the closing date, but not always the due diligence period. If this happens, you'll need to make the decision to move forward or to cancel to make sure you get your deposit back. So now that you've made it through this whole crazy process, it's time to actually close on the home and make it yours. This means you'll meet with an attorney or at the title company. The lender will tell you exactly how much money you'll need to close on the home. They'll also tell you how they'd like that money to be received. These days, most require that you wire the money from your account to their account. And if that's the case, be sure to call the company you've been working with right before you wire the money and right after to make sure it's been received. Recently, there's been a lot of wire fraud, and if you get fooled, you'll lose all that money and the house. Some victims of wire fraud have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's heartbreaking to see. Please use extreme caution so this doesn't happen to you. Be prepared to sign a lot of documents basically saying that you'll pay the bank back and that you understand that if you don't make your payments, they could take the house away from you. The pile of paper could be an inch thick and you'll sign in dozens of different locations. Once again, it's all part of the process. I have a few different videos to help you through the closing of your home so you know exactly what to do before and after you move in. I'll put links to my recommended videos below. If this video has you feeling uneasy or nervous, don't let it dampen your spirits. Buying a home is the safest and best investment most people ever make, and it's a lot better than paying rent. If you're currently renting, consider this. Number 1, in this market, with these crazy low mortgage rates, it's often more expensive than the cost to buy a home. And number 2, you could be putting that money each month toward buying a home. After 30 years of paying rent, you'll have nothing to show for it. But after 30 years of making house payments, you'll have hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity, which will allow you to retire in style. When it comes time to getting keys to your new home, remember that it needs to fund and record with the city before the sellers will give you the keys. Depending on certain factors like location, you could receive keys at closing, or you may need to wait a day or two. Your realtor should be able to give you a realistic expectation for getting your keys. If you prefer to build a house, the process can be quite different. So be sure to check out my video, How to Buy a House from a Home Builder. I'll put a link to this video below. Is there something in this video that really stood out to you as being helpful? If so, what was it? Please let me know by commenting below. If you have questions or if I left something out, please help the community by leaving a remark below as well. Sincerely, I want to hear from you. If you know someone who's ready to buy a house, be a friend by sharing this video with them. And please, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below and ring that little bell to be notified each time I post new videos. Also, you can find me on Instagram at Ty the Real Estate Guy. If you found this information helpful, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to ring that little bell below. It'll make you feel good.